Welcome to the Academy. Jake Harrison pressed his face against the transport window as the massive structure came into view. The Galactic Defense Academy floated in space like a silver city, its curved walls reflecting light from 3 different suns. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports, bringing students from across the known galaxy. "First time seeing the Academy?" asked the pilot, a blue-skinned centurion with kind eyes. "Yes, sir," Jake replied, unable to hide his excitement. "I still can't believe they accepted me." The pilot chuckled. "Humans are rare here. You'll be one of maybe 12 in the whole Academy." Jake nodded. Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. Most species still saw humans as newcomers who hadn't proven themselves yet. That's exactly why Jake wanted to be here. He wanted to show that humans could contribute something valuable to the galaxy. The docking process took 20 minutes. Jake gathered his single bag and followed the other new arrivals through the airlock. The Academy's artificial gravity felt strange under his feet, lighter than what he was used to back home. He had to be careful not to bounce with each step. The orientation hall buzzed with nervous energy. Jake counted at least 15 different species among the new cadets. There were the tall, graceful Altarians with their silver skin and large eyes. The sturdy Vorgans stood in small groups, their rocky hide making them look like walking boulders. A few Zenthari floated in hover chairs, their tentacles moving in complex patterns as they communicated. "Welcome, cadets," boomed Commander Kaler as he entered the hall. The Centurion officer stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue skin marked with the ritual scars of his people. "You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. I am here to find out if they were right." Jake straightened his shoulders. He had trained for 2 years just to qualify for the entrance exams. Every human who applied had to pass tests that pushed their minds and bodies to the limit. Out of 3,000 applicants from Earth, only 12 had made it. "Your first challenge begins now," Commander Kaler continued. "Survival simulation. You will be placed in environments that test your ability to adapt and survive. Some of you will excel. Others will learn they chose the wrong career." The cadets were divided into groups of 6. Jake found himself paired with Nera, an Altarian with silver hair and bright green eyes. There was also Grixis, a young Vorgan who barely reached Jake's shoulder, Telu, a floating Zenthari who spoke in musical tones, Prex, a furry creature from the forest world of Silva, and Kando, a reptilian Soren with scales that changed color with his mood. "I've never worked with a human before," Nera said as they walked toward the simulation chambers. "What's Earth like?" "Pretty normal, I guess," Jake replied. "Lots of water, decent weather, plenty of animals. Nothing too special." Nera's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't say anything more. The first test was about to begin, and Jake had no idea that his definition of normal was about to shock the entire galaxy. The simulations. The first simulation dropped them into a rocky desert environment. The temperature readings showed it was hot enough to cause serious problems for most species. Jake watched his teammates struggle with the heat while he felt only mildly warm. When Grixis started showing signs of heat exhaustion, Jake helped him find shade and shared his water ration. "How are you not affected by this?" Grixis asked, his rocky skin taking on a pale color. "Back home, I used to hike in Death Valley during summer," Jake explained. "This feels pretty mild compared to that." The other cadets stared at him. Even Nera looked concerned. The second simulation placed them in a high-altitude environment with thin air. Jake watched as his teammates gasped for breath and moved slowly to conserve oxygen. He felt fine, maybe a little like he was back in the Rocky Mountains. When Telu's hover chair started to malfunction in the thin atmosphere, Jake carried the Zenthari on his back for 3 miles without breaking a sweat. "Your planet's air must be very thin," Nera observed afterward. "Actually, it's pretty thick," Jake said. "Sometimes I feel like I'm breathing soup when it's humid." Again, the strange looks from his teammates. The third simulation tested their ability to handle physical challenges. Jake found himself easily lifting weights that made the Vorgan strain. When they had to climb a vertical rock face, he reached the top while others were still struggling halfway up. During the endurance run, he finished the course and jogged back to encourage his tired teammates. "Where did you train before coming here?" Commander Kaler asked Jake after the simulation. "Just regular gym classes and hiking," Jake answered honestly. "Sometimes I'd go camping in the mountains or desert with my family." Commander Kaler made notes on his data pad. "What kind of predators live near your home?" "Oh, the usual stuff. Bears, mountain lions, wolves, rattlesnakes. Nothing too dangerous if you're careful and make noise when you hike." The commander's stylus froze above his pad. "Bears?" "Yeah, black bears mostly. Brown bears if you go further north. They're not really a problem unless you surprise them or get between a mother and her cubs." "How large are these bears?" Jake thought for a moment. "Maybe 7 feet tall when they stand up. The big males can weigh around 600 pounds. Commander Kaler's blue skin took on a pale shade. "And you consider these not dangerous?" "Well, they can be if you're stupid about it," Jake said, "but mostly they just want to be left alone. The mountain lions are actually more dangerous because they're harder to spot." "Mountain lions?" "Big cats, about 8 feet long, maybe 150 pounds. They hunt deer and elk mostly, but sometimes they'll go after livestock or pets if food is scarce." By now, several other instructors had gathered around to listen. Jake noticed their expressions growing more concerned with each animal he mentioned. The emergency. That evening, Jake sat with Nara in the academy cafeteria. She picked at her food, which looked like glowing algae to Jake but probably tasted fine to her. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Sure. On my world, the most dangerous animal is about the size of your hand. It has a sting that can paralyze small prey." She paused. "You talk about bears and mountain lions like they're common house pets." Jake laughed. "They're not that bad. You just have to be smart about it. Back home, more people get hurt from deer than from predators." "Deer hurt people?" "During mating season, the males get aggressive. Plus they cause car accidents. But that's just normal stuff." Nara stared at him for a long moment. "Jake, I don't think your world is as normal as you believe." The emergency alarm blared through the academy corridors at 3 o'clock in the morning. Jake rolled out of his bunk and grabbed his emergency kit, moving faster than his roommate Grixis, who was still fumbling with his gear. "All cadets report to emergency stations," the announcement echoed. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Jake and his teammates rushed to their assigned section. The corridor lights flickered and dimmed. Warning messages flashed on wall displays, indicating multiple system failures throughout the academy. "Life support is failing in sections 12 through 18, Commander Kaler announced over the communication system. All teams deploy to assist with evacuation and repairs." Jake's team found themselves in section 15, where the artificial gravity had dropped to half standard and the atmospheric pressure was falling fast. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as they moved through the corridors. Nara stumbled beside him, her breathing becoming labored. "The air feels so thin," she gasped. Grixis was doing worse. The Vorgan's rocky skin had turned a sickly gray color, and he moved like each step required enormous effort. "Too light," he wheezed. "Can't get proper footing." Jake looked around, confused. The gravity felt fine to him, maybe even a little heavy compared to what the academy normally maintained. The air seemed perfectly breathable. He had experienced worse conditions during family camping trips at high altitude. "Here, let me help," Jake said, supporting Grixis with one arm and helping Nara steady herself with the other. Even carrying part of their weight, he felt no strain. They reached the first group of trapped cadets behind a sealed emergency door. The control panel showed the hydraulic system had failed, leaving several students from various species locked inside with failing life support. The manual override requires 2 people, said Cadet Plex, a senior student who had arrived ahead of them. But the lever takes 300 pounds of force to move. Jake examined the heavy mechanical lever. I can handle it. You need help, Plex insisted. Even Vorgans need 2 people for emergency overrides. Let me try first, Jake said. He gripped the lever and pulled. It moved smoothly, and the door slid open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Plex stared at him. That's impossible. The manual says it requires 2 adult Vorgans or 3 Centurions. Maybe it was stuck and just needed a good pull, Jake suggested. Inside the room, they found 8 cadets in various states of distress. The Altarians were unconscious from oxygen deprivation. The Zenthari were barely floating, their hover chairs struggling in the low pressure. Even the normally tough Soren looked sick. Jake lifted 2 unconscious Altarians, 1 under each arm, and started toward the evacuation route. Come on, we need to move fast. Wait, Nara called weakly. You can't carry both of them. Altarians weigh almost as much as humans. But Jake was already moving, carrying his burden effortlessly through the darkened corridors while his teammates struggled to keep up. The revelation. The evacuation took 6 hours. Jake worked tirelessly, carrying injured cadets, moving debris, and operating manual systems that others couldn't handle. By the time the emergency was over, word had spread throughout the academy about the human who seemed immune to the conditions that had debilitated everyone else. The next morning, Jake was summoned to Commander Kaler's office. He found not just the commander waiting, but also Dr. Brooks, the academy's xenobiologist, and several other senior staff members. Sit down, Cadet Harrison, Commander Kaler said, his expression serious. We need to discuss your planet. Jake took a seat, feeling nervous. Did I do something wrong, sir? On the contrary, Dr. Brooks said, pulling up a holographic display. We've been analyzing the data from your performance in the simulations and during the emergency. The results are unprecedented. The hologram showed Earth rotating slowly in the center of the room. Various data points appeared around it: atmospheric composition, gravity readings, temperature ranges, and biological data. Tell me, Commander Kaler said, what's the gravity on Earth compared to galactic standard? Jake shrugged. I don't know the exact numbers. It feels normal to me. Earth's gravity is 1.3 times galactic standard, Dr. Brooks said. Most species would find it uncomfortably heavy. You've been living your entire life under conditions that would tire out of organ in hours. The hologram shifted to show atmospheric data. Your planet's atmosphere is denser than 94% of habitable worlds. The oxygen content is so high that many species would suffer toxicity after prolonged exposure. Jake stared at the display. But that's just normal. Normal for a death world, Commander Kaler said quietly. The room fell silent. Jake had heard the term before. Death worlds were planets so hostile that most galactic species couldn't survive on them without extensive life support. But people live on Earth, Jake protested. Billions of people. We have cities, farms, families. Kids play outside. Yes, Dr. Brooks said, which makes humans extraordinary. Let me show you something else. The hologram changed to display various Earth animals. These creatures you mentioned as not too dangerous. A 600-pound bear would be classified as a Class 5 apex predator on most worlds. Mountain lions would require military intervention to handle safely. Images of Earth's environment flashed by: hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, blizzards, floods. Your weather patterns, Commander Kaler continued, would be considered weapons of mass destruction on most civilized worlds. Yet humans live through them regularly. Jake felt dizzy as the implications sank in. Are you saying Earth is actually dangerous? Cadet Harrison, Dr. Brooks said gently, your planet is one of the most hostile inhabited worlds in the known galaxy. The fact that humans not only survive there but thrive makes your species remarkable. But we're not special, Jake said. We're just people. You carried 2 adult Altarians for miles without strain, Commander Kaler pointed out. You operated emergency equipment designed to require multiple trained personnel. You functioned normally in conditions that left seasoned cadets from warrior species incapacitated. The weight of this revelation settled on Jake's shoulders. Everything he'd thought was normal, the hiking, the weather, the animals, even just walking around under Earth's gravity, had been training him for challenges that most galactic species couldn't handle. What does this mean? Jake asked. Commander Kaler and Dr. Brooks exchanged glances. It means, the commander said, that we may have seriously underestimated humanity's potential contribution to the galaxy. A new understanding. Word spread quickly through the galactic community. Within weeks, Earth went from being seen as a minor new member world to something much more significant. The Galactic Defense Academy requested detailed studies of human physiology and Earth's environment. Other species began to understand why the 12 human cadets consistently topped their classes in survival training, physical challenges, and emergency response. Jake found himself at the center of it all, but he tried to stay focused on his studies. His teammates, once skeptical of the newcomer from an unknown world, now looked at him with a mixture of awe and respect. I still can't believe you grew up with bears as neighbors, Nara said one evening as they studied together in the library. They weren't exactly neighbors, Jake laughed. Though there was this one time a bear got into our garbage. Nara shuddered dramatically, making Jake smile. Some things about galactic friendship were universal. As graduation approached, Jake received an unexpected visit from Commander Kaler. The Centurion looked more serious than usual. Cadet Harrison, I have a proposition for you, he said. The Galactic Defense Force is establishing a new division, Extreme Environment Response. We want you to help lead it. Jake looked up from his tactical manual. Me? But I'm just a cadet. You're a cadet who has redefined our understanding of what's possible, Commander Kaler replied. Your people have capabilities we never imagined. We need someone who can train others to handle situations that were previously considered impossible missions. The offer was tempting, but Jake had to ask, what about the other human cadets? They'll have opportunities too. Earth's status in the galactic community has changed dramatically. Your planet is no longer seen as a minor member world, but as a source of some of the most capable individuals in the galaxy. Jake thought about his family back on Earth, probably still thinking he was just attending a fancy space school. They had no idea that their normal life had shocked an entire galaxy. I accept, Jake said, but I want to make sure Earth stays involved. We're not just here to be your extreme environment specialists. We want to contribute to the galaxy in every way we can. Commander Kaler smiled, the first time Jake had seen him do so. I think that can be arranged. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new Extreme Environment Response training facility, watching as cadets from dozens of worlds attempted their first survival simulation. They were doing better than expected, partly because the training now incorporated techniques learned from studying human adaptation methods. Nara joined him at the window. She wore the insignia of a communications specialist, having found her own path in the Defense Force. Do you ever miss thinking your world was normal? She asked. Jake considered the question. Below them, a group of Altarian cadets successfully completed a high-gravity exercise that would have been impossible for their species just a year ago. In the distance, Earth was visible as a small blue dot, no longer dismissed as an insignificant backwater world. Sometimes, he admitted. But I think this is better. We're not just surviving anymore, we're helping others learn to thrive in conditions they never thought possible. The galaxy is lucky to have found you, Nara said. Jake smiled, watching as another group of cadets tackled a challenge that had once seemed insurmountable. I think we're lucky to have found each other. The galaxy had indeed been ignoring Earth, dismissing humanity as newcomers who hadn't proven themselves. But sometimes the most extraordinary things come from the most unlikely places. And sometimes, what one species considers perfectly normal can change the entire galaxy's understanding of what's possible. As Jake looked out at the stars, he realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their resilience or their physical capabilities, it was their perspective. They had grown up thinking the extraordinary was ordinary, which meant they could help others see that the impossible was simply another challenge to overcome. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities that had once seemed impossible but now felt simply like the next normal day in an extraordinary galaxy. The end.